I don't know how to work this Zoom thing. I'm trying to text back.
Am I muted? No, I'm not.
Okay.
I am the same way. I am too on Zoom. On the bottom of my screen, like there's a little chat. It'll say chat, and that's where you can message back and
Oh,
forth.
okay.
Yeah, I'm used to using Adobe. Like that's what we use here. And I've been on plenty of webinars that have been on Zoom, but I'm usually on that side of it and not this side.
Yeah. I'm trying to work it on my computer, but for some reason, it's not letting me go to Zoom, and so I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder what's wrong with the computer. It won't do that.
I'll turn around to see if you can help. So I'm here, and then let's do, and then I'll go ahead and scroll this over and then join. Let's do this one. Yeah, this one.
Are you going to the right date? Like the one for tonight?
Yes. Yes. So, oh, excuse me. I think
Oh,
the very
somebody said you have to download Zoom.
okay. Yeah, for some reason it's not letting me download either. And this computer, I just bought this computer, so I'm having a lot of trouble with it, and I don't know how to fully use it yet, but my phone is fine.
Okay. Well, and hopefully maybe by next week you'll get figured that out. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's probably somebody that can help you on that. Because I bet maybe it's because, but usually if you don't have the Zoom on there, in order to come up that you need to download it when you
Okay.
try to hit one of those.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what I did, and for some reason it's not letting me download Chrome or any app. I've tried to look it up on Google, but or YouTube, but still. But I'll keep. I'll do it later.
I wonder too if it could be like there's some kind of pop-up, like
Yeah.
maybe it has some kind of security feature on it that's
Yes.
blocking it.
Yes. That's what it is.
That's nice if you have been using Zoom. We use in the school district I work for, it's usually Google Classrooms.
Okay.
All right, we got about 4 minutes or so.
Okay. So I just got into Russia like a few days ago, and I was rushing, and I didn't even get my book yet, but I did purchase it just 15 minutes ago online, and I was wondering if I missed anything.
No, well, like for tonight, you were going to read the first chapter, and we're going to
Okay.
talk about it. But I mean, we're not going to go too deep into anything tonight, so I think you'll be fine on catching up.
All right. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and it's not, that first chapter's not like a huge chapter either, so you should be okay.
Okay.
Oh, and then are you able to on your phone, like, are you able to mute it too?
Yes. Yes. You want me to?
Too. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. All right. Are you? Let me make sure I'm recording. Okay, we are recording. Can everyone hear me okay? You don't have any trouble hearing me? We will go ahead and get started. It is 6 o'clock, and we may still have a few people to join us probably. First thing I thought I would do is just kind of introduce myself to you guys. I don't know, I don't think I've had any of you in class before. So y'all will be a new group for me. First, my name's Christina Dalton, and I've been teaching for Brescia probably almost 5 years now. And I was a graduate from Brescia many years ago. And then I had my master's from Kent School of Social Work through the U of L program. I'm also, I'm in school kind of right now. I am in the process of getting my LCSW licensed clinical social worker license. So I've been doing that for about a year. So I understand all the, all the school stuff going on because I am at the moment a student myself. My background in social work, I've been in social work probably about 21 years now. I have worked in like a social service agency. That's what I did when I first graduated from college. And I worked with mostly women that had received welfare assistance for like 20 years plus, and helping them to come off of that public assistance. But the majority of my career has been in education. I have been a family resource. Is any of you all familiar with family resource coordinators in your schools? It's kind of like a school social worker a little bit. And so I did that for 2, sometimes 3 elementary schools for about 18 years. And then, oh, I think somebody's not muted. Maybe Leah. It always does that weird. Oh, thank you so much. This will be my starting my 3rd year as a district social worker for Davis County Public Schools. And so in that role, I get to work in trauma. I get to work with all the schools from elementary all the way up to high school and alternative high schools. So it's just kind of it's a bigger audience to be able to practice my social work skills. I was going to go over just a few housekeeping things for you guys first. Oh, and I also have a 16-year-old daughter. So she has been rocking out this quarantine that she said she is designed for quarantine with her Nintendo Switch and drawing and TikTok and all of those good things. So I've been working from home since the middle of March, and just in July, in the school system, we started to have in-person meetings. And actually, if you think about everything that's going on, like we'll use a lot of that information in class because even though it's super inconvenient and we all hate everything that's going on, it's a very interesting time in the world, and it's interesting in social work, trying to figure out, how do I see my clients online? How can I provide mental health services to students and staff? And so it's making us extremely creative, I feel like. And I also feel like a lot of things that are going on are going to, continue because some of the things that have come out of it are really good. So we'll talk about that a little, when it gets to a part that it applies to. So how I do like if you look at your syllabus, that's going to have all of the information that you really need. And what I do on assignments is you have a week. So what's on there for tonight, you will have 1 week to complete that assignment. So it will be due before we start class next Wednesday. So by 6 o'clock next Wednesday, what's due for tonight will have to be ready. Does that make sense? And I know every teacher is probably different this year, but I know just from experience, I've taken the module classes where they're 8 weeks. There's a lot of work in these classes, and they're really great because you get that 3-hour credit, but I know that you're working your tails off in these classes as well. Yes, that is right, Bianca. So I think all the professors maybe did it a little bit different. But the way I thought would be best is it'll give you a choice of assignments. So it's going to say you have a quiz, you have a paper, or you have a discussion board. And I know some instructors may say you have to do all of them. Some instructors may say pick 2. In mine, I just chose to pick 1 because there's a couple classes where you're going to have one of those assignments and an additional assignment that's not one of those 3 things, if that makes sense. And I decided, I think I'm going to, there's nothing on the discussion boards because, with that choice to pick, I don't really feel like, if somebody picks discussion board and nobody else picks discussion board, you're not really going to get that interaction that you're truly going for on the topics. So I'm just going to scratch discussion board for now. So what you'll choose from most of the time is going to be a quiz or a paper. And I think in maybe 2 or 3 weeks, you'll have to pick one of those, and then it'll be another paper or something that goes with it. Does that sound pretty good to everybody? And I know some of those extra assignments, if somebody needs some extra credit or, it'll give us more options, I guess, if we need them down the road. So that's what you'll do. You'll pick 1. And so your quizzes, this class, hopefully everybody does amazing. When you pick a quiz, it's open book. It's not timed. So I really feel like you need to put a lot of effort into that, because if you put the time into it, you're going to get a great grade. There's nothing restricting you on that. If it takes you 2 hours to take the quiz, you get 2 hours. So I really think you should put a lot of effort, into those. And if it's a paper, a lot of times it's going to be like a self-reflection paper. So it's one of those, you're going to get out of it what you put in it. And I really hope that you take the opportunity to take your time and really, use your critical thinking skills and challenge yourself on the topics, because a lot of times they are just about learning about yourself. So, that should be a pretty easy grade. Sometimes it's not the easiest to answer the questions, but it's being self-reflective. The quizzes kind of range. Every now and then there's one that's 5 questions. But for the most part, they're usually at least 10 questions, multiple choice. Very rarely there might be one where it's a fill in the blank. But that's usually kind of the format on those. So when you go to your syllabus, it's going to have what your assignments are in this class. So you're going to pick one of those 2 always, a quiz or a paper. And it's going to tell you, do I have it down? Okay, so and those are considered your weekly assignments. those weekly assignments add up to 40% of your overall grade. So they're very important. You will have a self-reflection paper, and it's a 5 to 7 page paper. That's going to amount to 25% of your overall grade. And then you'll have a reading summary, and that's where you're looking at a social work journal and you're kind of analyzing an article from it. So it's just, it's just a summary of a social work journal. It's not anything hard. And then you'll have something that's called an application assignment. And that's kind of where we take that critical thinking and you may apply it to the social work ethics or whatever it is we're talking about. You're going to apply the knowledge that we're learning to this paper. And those, like separately, they make up 12.5%. So I think that should give you a pretty good idea of what to expect in this class. And I'm extremely easygoing person. And I feel like if I'm extremely transparent with you about what the expectations are, and if you communicate with me, because I know like now is even crazier than normal, but as long as you try to communicate with me, if something comes up, I will completely try to work with you on assignments and helping you. If you need to schedule, like a one-on-one, just a visit like this in Zoom, whatever I can do to help you. But it does make it harder if it's on the back end, and I know emergencies and things, of course, come up too. I just really try to stress, if something's coming up, not to wait till the last minute to try to communicate with me on that. Does anybody have any questions on any of that? And there are, with the way we have 8 classes, it's not always going to work out that you have a week every single time. I think the very last class, you may have a few less days to turn in an assignment. And on the reading summary and the application assignment, those you will have that extra week. But on the self-reflection paper, the one that's 5 to 7 pages, that will have a specific date that's due. I feel like it's week 5 or 6. It's a little ways off. But that's also listed in your syllabus, like the exact date that it will be due. So any questions so far? Let me pull this up. Oh, okay, Kristen. I will, as soon as class is over, like this is recording, and as soon as it's over, I will upload that. So you'll be able to go to class 1, and that will be listed under there. So you could, whatever time you leave at 6:30, you should be able to go to that point in the video and finish watching it whenever you want to. I will always post these. Hopefully by by tonight, or at least in the morning. Sometimes the video does, depending on how long it is, it takes a little bit longer to finish. And this is my first time being on the instructor side of Zoom, so I understand if there are any difficulties. Hopefully I don't have any. I got on here and practiced with Mr. Palmer before, just to make sure I was doing everything correctly. So this is everybody. I know you were talking about one person hadn't got their book yet. This is your book, Understanding Human Behavior and the Social Environment. This is a new book this year, or it's a new edition, I should say. So it's a little bit different than the book that we've been using in the past. Some of the activities that we do in here are new as well, but I think it's only going to benefit you. Because I've looked at everything, and I think some of the assignments are a lot better than they actually were before. This is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see that good, the lights on it. And that is also listed on your syllabus as well. What I love about this book, I love this book because of the way it's set up for you. So this book is set up with a lifespan approach. So we're going to look at early childhood. Then we're going to look at middle or early and middle adulthood. And then we're going to look at later adulthood. And so the way it breaks it down for you is when we are looking at, let's say, any one of them, early adulthood, you're going to look at the biology of what does it look like in early adulthood physically, what's going on to us physically in early adulthood, what's going on psychologically. And then you're also going to look at sociological aspects. So we're going to look at what are people going through that are in early adulthood? What are some issues that they might be experiencing? And then we're also going to look at populations that might be at risk. We're going to look at different groups, and we're going to see how can we help people that are outside of that. How does it worded when it talks about populations at risk? I'll get there. It's in this chapter. This first chapter is not too terribly long. But I just really like the way it's laid out. It's laid out for you really well because in social work, it does like this information you have in this class 1 and 2, it's going to go with you throughout your career. It's going to go with you even if you don't become a social worker for some reason, because you're trying to figure out why people do what they do. And that's going to help you because you may in social work, one of the reasons I love social work so much is because I can work with kids, I can work with adults, I can work with elderly. There's almost not a population that you can't work with in social work and settings. You can work in education, you can work in a hospital setting, you can be in a nursing home, you can be in a social service agency with the government. It offers you probably one of the biggest, the most options of any career, I feel like. Now you may not get rich from it, but you're going to be able to do many things. And if you don't, you feel like I really ran my course in this, then, there's another population that you can work with. And that's why your field placements are so important. And I know you're probably not at that stage yet, because that's where you kind of figure out what your niche is and where your passion is and where your strengths are. I would like to know if you would put in the chat box where you're from and tell me, like, if you have a job that you're doing social work in now. Like, I'd like to know if anybody's already working in the field. I love doing these classes because you learn so much from everybody from where they are. Oh, I usually never have anybody from Owensboro. That's awesome. Oh, I got 2 from Owensboro. Hancock County, Minnesota, Ohio. Oh, Evansville. That's not very far. A crisis phones counselor. Wow, I bet that's interesting. Oh, we have several from Owensboro. I'm pumped about that. California, Michigan. Oh, hold on. I gotta go back up. Now, Mark, are you in Afghanistan right now? No. Okay. New York, Hancock County. Oh,
currently stuck at home.
You
They
what?
won't, they won't let me back into Afghanistan currently. So I'm actually waiting on a date to fly because I've been here for, I think, 6 months now, and normally it's a 90-30 rotation.
Oh,
So
wow. So you will be going back soon, probably.
hopefully, hopefully.
I bet that's so interesting. That's neat. Dallas, Texas. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Foster parent. It's very difficult work. Oh, that's amazing. Director of Hispanic Ministry. Wow, you all have lots of little social work under your belts already. That's amazing. Can I have you answer one more question about what your future plan? Like, what are you wanting to, maybe what area you're wanting to work in, you think? And I know that will probably change, but right now, what you're thinking you'd like to work in as far as social work goes? DCBS, they need amazing social workers, that's for sure. Oh, that's cool. Oh, wow, theology. Yeah, I mean, social work's never, ever, the information you learn is never going to hurt you in life. I feel like social workers, most social workers are very kind, and they have a unique way of looking at the world. Yeah, I have a special place in my heart for hospice. I think the work they do is amazing. Mental health. Oh, we need mental health right now more than ever. Psychology, domestic violence. That's awesome. All right. That just kind of helps me get to know you guys a little bit better. And I always have to watch my time because I don't like to keep you forever, but I will get to talking and I'll lose track of time. Okay, so your book starts out in this chapter talking about the foundational pieces of social work. And they talk about 3 things that you do as a social worker, and they're very general. And the first one is that you help people solve problems. Hold on, let me answer this question. Yes, you, Taryn, I hope I'm saying that right. You pick from, we're not going to do discussion boards, but you pick from a quiz or a paper, and you just pick one of those to complete. Unless there's additional assignments, and I'll always talk about what to do every time. So as a social worker, one of your main goals is to help people solve problems and to cope. I think one of the biggest things as social workers that we can do is, you think about all of the things that people come to you as a social worker. If you have a social worker in your life, things are probably, it doesn't mean that they're the worst, but things are probably not where you expected them to be if you have a social worker. Whether that's, if you're a hospice worker and a family member has died, whether it's you need help with food, rent, some type of assistance, mental health services, all of those things. So I feel like one of the biggest things we can do with clients is to help them cope and give them coping strategies, because I do a whole lot of work with trauma, and I've been trained with the University of Kentucky's Center for Trauma and Children, and so we do a lot of work in trauma-informed practices, which I feel like that social workers really need trauma-informed practices when you're working with clients. So, because there's so many things that we can't control. You know, we can't necessarily control the domestic violence in the house. We can't control the child abuse and the drug use and different things like that. And those are also things that as a society we can't eradicate. You know, we can't completely get rid of those either. But the biggest thing you can do, I feel like, is help people cope. And that's one of the big things when you're looking at people who've experienced trauma, which is usually with children, it's like 1 in 4, is when those things go down, how resilient are you to get back up? And so I feel like that's a huge piece of what we do in social work. So the next thing we do in social work is we work with systems. And we're going to talk about that a little more here in a minute. But those systems can be government agencies, it can be education, it can be churches, it can be communities. We work with a whole lot of systems. And our end goal is to help clients access those. We want to link families, people, communities with the resources that they need. So that's one of our biggest goals, is that if something isn't, where people are not getting linked or a system is broken, that we want to improve that system and we want people to have better access to those things. So your book, and I kind of jump around a lot in this, but I try to go through here and pick out the things that I feel like are most important for you to know tonight. And you can always go back, you know, if you take the quiz or whatever you choose, and use your book on some of those answers that we may not cover tonight. One of the big things that you'll do as a social worker that your book talks about in the very beginning of this chapter is how important it is to do assessments. So when we're doing assessments, we're gathering information, we're going to analyze that information, and we're going to interpret that. And that's gonna be a major foundational piece of what you do, probably no matter what job you're in, because you go back to those 3 things that we do as social workers. We help solve problems, and we can't do that without an assessment. We can't do that without knowing what's going on. And just for example, even if it's somebody that, let's say they need help with their utility bill. Well, you need to know if they've asked anybody else for help. What other resources have they accessed? Do they have family members that can help them? Are they working? You know, you're also looking at, when you're doing that assessment, you're trying to figure out, how can I help this person so that they don't get in this situation again? That's a big thing with me in social work, is that we don't enable our clients. We don't want our clients to depend on us, you know, for things. We want to model those things, and we want to teach them how to do that. I've had several clients before that, let's say somebody worked with them. I had this one, I always remember, and this woman would take them every Saturday, and she would pick them up and take them to do grocery shopping, and she would also take them to the bank. She did all these things for them on Saturday, and because they didn't have access to a vehicle, and they had some disabilities and different issues, and so they had to move, and they came to my school, and they called me up, and they said, you know, this is so and so, and Miss Dalton, we wanted to know what time you're going to pick us up on Saturday so we could run all our errands. And I was like, excuse me? Like, I thought, these people have lost their mind. And it really, that always stuck with me, because I thought, you didn't do, like, you were very kind, you know, and you helped these people, but you didn't do them a justice, because now they're in another situation and they have no skills. They have, just like what we were talking about, they cannot cope because they don't know how to do any of these things. So I'm very much in your positions as social workers. we have to teach. We have to teach people how to access resources, and we have to model that behavior. And, and it's not with this particular family. They lived to where they were really close to the bus stop. And it was, I didn't just say, here's some bus tokens. We read the map together. We rode the bus together. I showed them, this is how you get to the bank. This is the route for the bank. This is how you get to Walmart. We did those things together, and I still see them. Like, I still see those people. Sometimes they walk a lot because they're by a school that I used to have. But like when I taught them those things, they moved on to other things. Like, they learned those skills, but they really needed that social worker in their life that was going to take the time to show them. Because a lot of times we hand people a piece of paper and we say, this is where you need to go and this is what you need to do. And for some people, like these people, they really even, I remember it was the dad or the mom really struggled with reading. So they had a hard time reading a map. So you have to figure out, how can I give him this map and be able for him to know how to read it? You have to start where the person is. That story, I just feel like, is so important, because you want them to leave you. I always think, and I usually say this at the beginning of my classes, I want you as students to leave me better than when you got here. And that's the same way I am with clients. I want them to leave me with more skills, more coping skills, just everything better when you leave me. And if you haven't, then there's probably something on my end that I didn't provide. So that's just kind of a motto that I use. But again, with that, you have to figure out in social work too, with that assessment piece, people are going to try to fool you. People are going to lie to you. They're going to tell you, yes, I'm going to go down and I'm putting my application in here and I'm doing this, and I'm not going to go to that church because you're helping me. They're going to say things that aren't true. And that's where that assessment piece can be so important, because you don't want to take all those things at face value either. And that's kind of a skill, that is learned over time. Like, people get better at that. Because I always want to see the good, in people. And for the most part, even working 20 years in social work, there's been some people that were not kind and tried to get every service they could get and things like that. But it's a very small percentage, I feel like. But that's something else that comes in there. You want to know about why people do what they do, because that's going to help you when you're doing your assessment. That's why this class is so important, because when somebody comes in your office, you're going to think in your head, oh, this person is, they're a teenager and they're asking me this, and they could be going through depression. They could have an eating disorder. Like, you're going to know the issues that a teenager might deal with. They could be suicidal. And that's immediately going to pop in your brain. And that could really play a big part in your assessment piece. So you want to know the reasons why people do what they do. And of course, it's not, a catch-all, but it's going to give you a good foundation to start with. On page 7 in your book, on number 2 at the right-hand corner, it's going to talk about how this book emphasizes the lifespan development. And page 6 through 9, actually, and maybe a little bit on 10. This will be good on your paper, your big paper, to come back to this, because this is going to talk about that. It's going to give you that psychosocial, hold on, it's on the other page. Excuse me. The psychosocial cultural being. It's going to talk about the common life events, And it's going to tell you what we look at in the biological, what we look at in the psychological, because when you do that self-reflection paper, you're going to be doing that on yourself. I'm really pumped about these papers because this is the first time that they've done a paper like this. So you're actually going to be taking the information that we talk about, and you're going to find out, okay, so if I'm doing this paper, I'm in middle adulthood, and I'm going to be assessing where am I biologically. I'm going to be assessing psychologically what I could, what I'm going through. I'm going to talk about issues that I might face being in middle adulthood. So it's going to be a complete self-reflection paper about yourself. So I think it's going to be really cool to see what you think about yourself on those, because it's really easy to talk about the things that we don't like. And that is, hold on, you have your choices for this week. You have that quiz you could pick, but you also have a paper. You have a paper that you could choose. I think it's like a 1-page paper for this week. And it is kind of a little bit like the bigger paper. It's called a strengths assessment. So you're going to be writing like a 1-page paper on what is strong with you. And that's where I was going with that. It's easy. I feel like we're all probably a little hard on ourselves most of the time, and it's easy to point out all the things we don't like about ourselves. But this paper is, you're going to dig deep on what is awesome about yourself and what strengths that you have. It talks in here in this chapter, it goes through some different theories. And one of the first ones, excuse me, one of the first ones, and this is on page 14, it'll talk about a strengths perspective. And that's kind of where that paper comes from, the one for this week. But when you operate as a social worker from a strengths perspective, you are working with clients and you're trying to find those things that are strong in them. So a lot of times people will ask you as a social worker, what model do you practice, or what theory do you base your practice on? Things like that. And I always will go back to the strengths perspective, because I think you build people up when you can identify their strengths. And it's not even necessarily a positive when you're talking about the strengths perspective. It could be somebody is a total jerk, but somehow you're able to turn that into a strength for them, because in certain situations, you could say in certain situations you really know how to hold your own with people, or you have to get really creative, because sometimes, especially working with kids and clients, there's going to be people that you don't like when you're working with them. And using this perspective, it helps you because you have got to find a strength in that person. You've got to find a strength in that kid that gives you just 10 fits. But I think when they talk about the strengths perspective, I think it's such an amazing foundation piece for your social work practice, the way you work with families, the way you work with kids. So that's on page 14, and it actually walks you through an example of working with a family, a case example, working with a family and how they use that strengths perspective. Hold on, I think somebody had a question. Yes, yeah, you could talk about their passion for, let me think how I would. how I would use that. Well, it could be that they're really good, that they're really good at a sport. Or let's say you have a child that they aren't that great on the team, but maybe they're really a good leader, or people really look up to them, people really listen to them. I think it's a lot of times trying to find those strengths for people that they don't see in themselves too. Because when I'm coming to a social worker, I have a ton of problems, and I can't pay any of my bills, I have no food, none, all of these things, it can give us blinders, so to speak, the stress, and we can't see anything good. And so using that strengths perspective can empower someone, because you see a strength in them that maybe they didn't necessarily know that they had. So it can kind of change that perspective for that person. That's why I think it's so important. Let me see what time. Okay, this class is going too fast. Let's see what else I think you need to know. It talks a little bit about, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, about using the code of ethics from the National Association of Social Workers. Those should be your guiding principles to your practice. There's 6 ethical principles. And has anybody taken ethics yet? I don't know where that is for you. You'll use these guidelines a lot if you take the ethics class to help you, because a lot of times you're going to come to ethical dilemmas in your social work practice, and these principles can help guide you to the answer. I taught ethics once, and I thought it was such a hard class because I felt like the principles guided me, but I was always over here like, well, it really could go this way, or it really could go this way. I felt like the whole entire class, I never could say, I'm 100% sure this is what the correct answer is. Ethical dilemmas are just extremely tough. But the code of ethics is there to guide us and help us make the right decisions. Click off that. Hopefully you're going to do a lot of critical thinking in this class. And I feel like we are living in a time that there's a lot of different scenarios. When we get to some different chapters, there's a lot of different topics that we can talk about. And I hope that we are non-judgmental, and that we can have open conversations, because I personally feel like when we challenge ourselves and we challenge our own beliefs, that's when we are able to grow. And I was in a training that was talking about racial trauma that kids and people are experiencing right now, and was talking about having tough conversations about things that maybe people haven't talked about before. And they said that we are living in a time where we have to choose courage over comfort, and that has just really stuck with me. That we have to have the courage, I feel like, right now, to be having conversations that maybe we haven't necessarily had before, and challenging our own beliefs to understand, to be empathetic, and to do better, just to, bottom line, do better. When we, like in the beginning when I was talking about how we help people solve those problems, and sometimes we want better access to resources, and we want to break down systems so that it's equal justice for everyone. That's a big part of social work. So hopefully, and I'm sure you will. You're in social work, so I know everybody in here is. That's one of the biggest things is to be. You can't be in social work and be judgmental. The two just it's just oil and water. They do not mix. Because and it's hard for people because when somebody keeps coming to you over and over and they're doing that same behavior and they haven't learned, it's so easy to be judgmental on the other side of that table. And that's why, again, I feel like this class is so important because it's going to help you perhaps understand what's going on behind that behavior. The last thing I'll talk about before we have to get off here, there's a lot of theories in social work, and on page 25, it's kind of a summary of the different theoretical perspectives that we'll study in this book. It gives you the chapters, the chapter numbers in there. I personally this sounds funny. I enjoy a theory, but I'm not the kind of person that I'm going to stick to one theory and believe everything has to be this way. I personally think that the theories are there for us to learn, and I feel like we, depending on who I'm working with, you may get a really great system and it works really well with the majority of your clients, but you may have someone else that comes to your office and you go, oh, I remember learning about this other theory and I feel like that's what's going on here, and maybe that will help me in this situation. I look at a lot of that theoretical information, and this could be completely wrong. I'm just telling you from experience. I look at it, a lot of it like a cafeteria, that I'm going to take this from this one and I may use this from this one. There's no absolute on them, just because as human beings, we're all unique and completely different. So you may have that 80-20 rule all the time, but there's still going to be people that fall in that 20%. But the first one that it talks about a lot is called person and environment. And that's on page 22 is where it starts. Actually, there's a better page. It's on page 34. It does, the little boxes will kind of summarize stuff for you that we talk about. It's a concept summary. So the two that actually, it'll talk, person and environment is talking about, it's a basic understanding of human dynamics, and it'll say it's how people interact with systems. So if you look at that little box, where does it go? Okay, on 34. So when you look at systems theory concept, it's going to give you all the terms involved in that concept. And then the other one on there is ecological perspective concepts. And they're very similar, the two concepts. But they're going to give you definitions about how people interact with systems. So the assignment that used to be in this class, I don't think it's next week. I think they took it out. But you had to write about your own system as a family unit, or you as a person, whatever your situation looks like. And so some of the terms, homeostasis. Homeostasis is, think of that when you're working with a family or thinking of your own situation. Homeostasis is when everything is working perfectly. You could think of it as an analogy like a car. When you have gas, you have your oil change, you have good tires, when everything is working properly, that is homeostasis. So when you have families come in, or you have adults, children, whoever it is, when they come to you, homeostasis is messed up. Like something's going on that's not right. And you can use these theories to figure out where the misinformation, like where exactly, like pinpoint the problem. So let me see. With that systems theory, it'll talk about input and output. So when everything's great, we have homeostasis. The input coming into my family unit is all the information and communication from other systems. And when you think about a system, you're talking about churches, schools, organizations, agencies, could be extracurricular activities, other jobs. It could be all of those things. But it's the communication that's coming into your family unit. So the output is how you process that information coming in from the other systems. How does that affect the environment? So a good example, when I was thinking about this today, is with right now we are on non-traditional instruction. So in my school system, we're not doing in-person school until October 12th. So if I'm a family unit, that's information coming from a school system into my family unit. How does that affect my homeostasis? Well, am I going to be able to find a babysitter? Do I have small children? Do I work for the school system? And if I have to go into work, who's going to watch my kids? Like, do you see what I'm saying on that? These concepts can help you figure out where those problems are. And if it's, because sometimes it could be the way we react to something. So it's going to be the energy, the output that's coming back out, or it could be what's coming in and what does that do to our homeostasis. I always think about things for me, if I have technology issues or car trouble. Those are two things that just rock my world because I don't want to ask anybody for a ride. And my TV, I don't have cable. So when my Wi-Fi gets messed up, like it's just end of the world for me. So if one of those two things happen, it's just, my homeostasis is all out of whack. So it's interesting to think about your own homeostasis and you as a system and how you interact, for like with COVID, for example, and people not having church. How has that affected their spirituality? Or you can look right now with everything that has shut down. How's that affected people's mental health? How have those systems, the way they interact? It just shows you too on like with school, how important, and you see so much of the emphasis on, I never realized how hard this was to teach. I've been trying to teach my child at home and I am failing. I can't do 5th grade math. So it just right now, it really spotlights those systems and how we interact with each other and the effect that they have on us. And then there's other ones in there. But using those concepts can help you work with families. This could help you so much if you were doing group work, if you were doing family counseling, marital counseling, trying to figure out what is off. So you're going to use this theory information on top of where are they in the lifespan, what's going on here and what's actually going on with their unit, so to speak. What time is it? Oh, we're going to have to go. All right. And then it has, at the end of your chapter, it does just some good summary points for you. So I know for this coming week, you either have a quiz or you have that paper that I was talking about, that, what did I say it was? A strengths assessment. I think it's just a 1-page paper. Trying to analyze what you're on, what are your, when we talk about that strengths perspective, to put that spotlight on yourself And I think it'll be really interesting if you do that, to think about, try to come up with some strengths that just aren't positive traits. There's all kinds of strengths that people have that we don't necessarily love about one another, but there's still a strength to you in some way. Let's see, I think I had a question. Yes, even if you do like a 1 page, just do those in APA. I mean, I'm not going to be hardcore about that. I will be hardcore about it when you have to do the bigger paper. They're a little more, because that one has a rubric that comes along with it. So just try to do your best. I am a real stickler, I will tell you, on not necessarily on your grammar, but just on spelling, and because I feel like that's a pretty easy thing to proof, as spelling. And sometimes if we don't put that little bit of extra effort in it, I just feel like that's an easy thing to fix, is things like that. And it just shows me that you really care about, the work that you're putting out there. All right, anybody have any questions for me? I'm so glad that you all are here, and I hope that you really enjoy this class and you get, I hope you get a lot out of it. And if you have any questions for me at all, please email me. I try to check that a couple times a day anyways. So if you don't have any other questions, I'm excited. I like this class. The only other class I like better than this one is Death and Dying. That always sounds so funny. Death and Dying. I'm not teaching it this semester, but I usually teach it. And I love that class. But this is my second favorite. This is a good one too. All right, I don't have anything else for you guys. I will, as soon as I get this processed, I will put the recording up for you all. It'll be under class 1. And otherwise, I will see you next Wednesday. And just let me know if I can do anything to help.
One quick question.
Uh-huh.
I came in late. I don't know. I think I'm on a different time. When I log on, it says 7.
Oh, I wonder, it's 6 o'clock Central. What time zone are you?
It's like almost 8 o'clock now, but I think I'm like 1 hour ahead of you guys.
Oh, yes. You need to log on an hour earlier.
Oh, okay.
So you got on at 7. Is that right? It's almost 8.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock now, basically, here. So I'm 1 hour ahead, but when I go on here, it says the class is at 7. So do I sign on 7 o'clock my time?
Oh, it says 7?
Yeah.
That's weird. It should say 6 o'clock Central time.
Okay. And then there's some other stuff like with the syllabus, they don't have any date on the, like I see things like it's a week.
Oh, okay. I talked about that a little bit. And I can go back and put those, oh, there you are. I can put those exact dates like in Moodle. I haven't done that yet. But like, so for tonight, it'll say on there that you have 3 options. So you have to either do a discussion board, a quiz, or a 1-page paper.
Mm-hmm.
And you only have to pick one of those. And we're not going to do the discussion boards right now. So really you're only picking from the quiz or the 1-page paper. And then you have a week. So tonight you'll have to turn that in by 6 p.m. next Wednesday.
Okay.
So most of the time, unless it will specifically have a date on the syllabus, like because you have a couple bigger papers, you'll always have a week to get it turned in.
Okay.
So like I think that very last week, it's not like a full week. It's a little bit shorter that week, but all the rest of them will work out to where you have a week to get it turned in.
Okay. Thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what time zone are you? You don't know what time, you're 2
I'm
hours
in
ahead?
New York. I'm 1
Oh,
hour ahead.
you're in New York?
Mm-hmm. 1
So
hour, I think. I'm 1 hour ahead.
1 hour ahead. So if it's 8 there, I guess you need to log on at 7 o'clock your time. Yeah, 7 o'clock your time.
Okay.
That was way too, I should have figured that out quicker. But you can go back. I will post this recording,
Okay.
and you can go back. And if there's any questions you have that weren't answered in the video, just you can email me, and I'll be glad to answer those for you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Where do you go find your syllabus?
Let me pull it up. It's down. Let me see. Okay, when you're on the class page for your class, you see where it says access to live classes. Do you see that? Are you still there? You go down.
Yes.
Did you
Okay.
find it? It's right, like where it says week
Live
1.
class. Yes, I
Week,
found it.
it's right above that. Yeah.
Okay. Above that, it just says BU online orientation course, and above that is start here questionnaire.
Oh yes. Have you taken that yet?
Or already did, yes.
Oh, okay. So you're good on that.
Yeah.
And then when you go down under week 1, if you go to lesson activities, you'll see those 3 options.
Okay.
And the only one, I need to go in and remove it. You won't do the forum, so you'll pick from either the quiz or the paper.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to so these are all the syllabus, week 1, week 2. These are all the syllabus.
It should be.
I thought it was
Did you pull the syllabus up?
No, I don't know where it is.
Okay, go. All right, you see where it says week 1 dates?
Yeah, I see week 1 dates, yes.
You should be able to go right above that, and it says syllabus.
Oh yeah, I see it now. Yes.
And when you download that, it'll have more specific dates on like the bigger paper.
Okay.
But like every one of those, like when something's a weekly assignment that's due, you'll have a week every time.
Okay.
Let me pull that.
Okay.
Does that help a little bit?
Yes. I see it, and thank you.
You are so welcome. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, I hope that gets worked out for you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Have a good night.
You too, bye.
Bye-bye.